In the United States, citizens vote for a massive roster of leaders. We elect a president, senators, representatives, governors, mayors, local judges, and sheriffs. The U.S. holds twice as many national elections as other Western democracies, and even more at the state and local levels. Many states also give citizens the power of direct democracy. Through initiatives and referendums, voters can bypass their state legislatures completely to approve or reject specific laws directly at the ballot box. This chart tracks 50 years of U.S. presidential turnout. In 1964, 69% of Americans voted. By 2012, it dropped to 56%. Without the presidency, participation collapses. During the 2010 midterms, turnout hit a low of 41%. It is easy to blame this on apathetic citizens who simply don't care about politics, but that overlooks how the American electoral system actually functions. The process is filled with structural frictions, invisible, built-in barriers that actively keep people away from the polls. The United States Constitution guarantees a constant churn of political campaigns. It dictates strict, unchangeable term lengths for federal offices, 2 years for House members, 4 for the president, and 6 for senators. Because these terms are staggered, federal elections happen every 2 years. To complicate matters, an 1845 law requires Election Day to fall on the Tuesday after the first Monday in November. This forces the majority of citizens to find time to vote right in the middle of the work week. To save money and boost local participation, most states intentionally align their own general elections with this federal Tuesday schedule. As a result, federal, state, and local candidates are all crowded onto a single, massive ballot. Sorting through dozens of unfamiliar names and complex local initiatives demands immense time and attention from the voter. When you combine a high-frequency election cycle with a time-consuming ballot on a busy Tuesday, the process naturally filters out voters with less flexible schedules. Working-class citizens who cannot easily leave their jobs or secure childcare face a steep logistical hurdle to participating. There is also a mental cost to voting. Some people are strong party voters who reliably choose all the Democratic or Republican candidates on the ballot without sweating the specifics. But about 40% of the electorate are independent or weak party voters, meaning they change their minds based on individual candidates or specific issues. For these individuals, the decision is remarkably complex. They are cross-pressured voters, pulled in conflicting directions by their background. Take a Latino Catholic voter. Latino demographics often lean Democratic, while a strict religious stance strongly aligns with the Republican platform. Without the shortcut of automatic party loyalty, millions of cross-pressured voters have to manually weigh which parts of their identity matter most in every race. That evaluation is a heavy cognitive burden, and ultimately it leads some citizens to simply skip voting entirely. Before looking at a ballot, citizens must navigate the bureaucracy of registration. In most European nations, the government automatically registers every eligible citizen. In the United States, each individual is responsible for their own registration and must re-register every time they move. Historically, local political parties functioned as social organizations that helped citizens fill out this paperwork and locate their polling places. Today, parties are far less involved in those direct community services, leaving voters to figure out the administrative rules on their own. This individual responsibility turns voting into an opt-in administrative test, one that many fail long before the polls even open. In recent years, this administrative friction has escalated into a fierce partisan legal battle over voter access, driven largely by newly passed state-level photo ID laws. Republican lawmakers argue that requiring photo identification is a necessary standard to prevent voter fraud. Democrats argue that in-person voter fraud is mathematically rare and that strict ID laws disproportionately block poor, minority, and elderly people who often vote Democratic. For decades, the Voting Rights Act gave the federal government the authority to approve or block voting law changes in states and communities with a history of voter discrimination. This pre-approval process was used to stop several local voter ID laws from taking effect. That changed in 2013. The Supreme Court ruled the parts of the Voting Rights Act determining which places needed this federal pre-approval were unconstitutional. States no longer needed permission to change their voting procedures, and several immediately put strict voter ID laws into effect. This chart shows the final outcome of these accumulated logistical, cognitive, and legal hurdles. When you compare the general population to the people who successfully cast a ballot, the electorate skews heavily towards citizens who are middle-aged, highly educated, and possess a higher income. Researchers and advocates have proposed several reforms to reduce this friction. These include moving Election Day to the weekend, creating a national voter registration system that follows citizens when they move, and expanding access to early voting and absentee balloting. Election rules function as active gatekeepers. By calibrating specific points of friction within the system, policymakers ultimately choose who gets a seat at the table.